truthfully, as a mentor, Sam is one of those mentees who is now completely self-sufficient on her own, entirely independent, but it's been absolutely incredible to see her trajectory unfold before my eyes and the community's eyes. It's insane to know that you were a massage therapist before this. What an incredible change. And not only that, you took what you had already, a successful UGC business, and you literally more than doubled it within 12 months. First, was there anything else introduction-wise that you just wanted to add to that?
No, I mean, you covered a lot of it. I do not have a marketing background. I got a BFA from TCU in modern dance. Okay. So literally was rolling around on the ground, feeling the earth like I was a modern dance major, you guys. Switched over to massage therapy, did that for 6 or 7 years. I still do hold my license because I love it. And I just like holding on to that in case I need it. But I had 2 kids and I was home primarily most of the time with those kids and wanted to get back into work. And so I was doing just a little bit of massage, but I was mostly home. And I was I feel like there's something else that I could be doing while I'm home with my kids. And I found UGC on TikTok, second wave creator kind of style, heard about it on TikTok and was because I had tried. I was maybe I could be an influencer, and that just did not work. So I would like to point out there were definitely failures that happened first because, people, they don't talk about those. But I did not do well with that. But I was oh, UGC, it's kind of like cosplaying as an influencer. Maybe that could work. I don't actually have to have followers or make it be about my private life. So I did that. It just completely snowballed from there.
Welcome to UGC Pro, the podcast where creative strategy, UGC innovation, and freelancing success collide. I'm your host, Kelly Rockline, a self-taught creative marketer from the brand and creator side. With over a decade of experience working with hundreds of brands and driving over $500 million in revenue. Now, as a mentor to more than 10,000 aspiring UGC creators and creative strategists, I'm here to help you unlock your full potential. Whether you're here to sharpen your ad game or gain fresh insights to elevate your creative freelance business, you're in the right place. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, or habit stack. Is there a pile of laundry that you need to get through? What about unloading the dishwasher? Maybe it's a good time to go out and get some fresh air. Whether you're cuddled up on the couch or getting your steps in, I am so happy you're here. So without further ado, let's dive in. You're a mother, you have 2 children. I didn't realize that you were trying out the influencer route, which so many of us have done. There have been a lot of people that have just said point blank, I didn't feel fulfilled following that route. And so it's very cool to hear that backstory. The first question having to do with background and journey is, how did you first learn about creative strategy and what steps, courses, self-study got you your first client?
99% sure I learned about creative strategy from you posting on your Instagram, your TikTok, whatever it was. I can't remember a specific post or aha moment where I learned about it. And we've talked about this a little bit in the past, the free trainings that you would do on Saturdays on YouTube. I ate those up. I was there every Saturday. That's where I met Lamise. Shane would be on talking about stuff. You guys absolutely killed it with those trainings. I had taken a UGC course previously, which didn't really go in depth into the creative strategy side of it. It was definitely more of just how to get brand deals, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I mean, that was really where I learned about it first. And then I just did a little bit of my own research on the side of just if there were really specific questions that I had. But I mean, you covered things in those trainings so thoroughly that I actually felt comfortable pitching to my UGC client about, hey, do you need creative strategy work before your course had even come out? And so I actually landed my first and current, still my client. It's been 2 years now that we've been working together. Yeah, I landed that client just from everything that you guys taught me in those YouTube trainings.
That's incredible. I love hearing that just because, I don't know, there's times where, you get in your own head and you're am I actually even making a difference here with these lives or with these posts? And it's just moments like those where I'm just okay, those did make a difference. And I, have heard it multiple times reaffirmed, but I love that was even the way to even secure your first client. And like you had said, this was even before we launched our Intro to Creative Strategy video course, which I know you had bought in January January, but wasn't it like even leading up to Creator Confidential, you're like, oh, I need to finish this. But I'm like, what a good problem to have, because you got it and you were so busy with your creative strategy clients that you're like, well, I'll finish it just for like maybe even the principle of the matter because I'm meeting you for the first time.
Yes. I was like, if I don't finish this dang course before I meet Kelly in person, that's so embarrassing. So I was in my hotel room just finishing the course, taking my notes and stuff, like literally like the day of the event, but I got it done before I met you.
That's amazing. Day-to-day and evolution. What does a typical day look like now versus when you first started?
Yeah. So very different. And this is, I think, a big part of why my journey with this client has been so interesting. The client that I pitched, like I said, he was a previous like UGC client of mine. So I had worked with a couple of his brands. He had been like a unicorn client, I called him. Like he filled out my inquiry form on my website, never asked questions or like argued about my rates, like very respectful of my time, paid me like in 24 hours. I mean, like he was great. So I pitched him on creative strategy and there were some back and forths about, well, what can you offer? He'd worked with agencies before where he didn't really feel like seen or heard, or like they valued like what actually needed to get done to make the ads. And he was just going to be like a number, but he had not had a creative strategist on his team. And I had not worked with a team as a creative strategist. So I showed up and was like, okay, what do I do now? So there was a lot of days where it was like, okay, I'm going to do like brand market analysis and like, stuff from your course. Like, okay, I'm going to do my motivations and barriers exercises. Okay, I'm going to start reaching out to creators. But it was a little bit slower going. And, as far as like, I didn't really ask a lot of the questions right away that I probably should have. What kind of output do we need? What KPIs do we need to hit on things for them to be considered successful? What are your big goals here, like moving forward as far as like, general growth for the brand and stuff? So now my day-to-day it still varies depending on what we're doing. I do not have a cookie cutter day, which I really enjoy that every day is a little bit different. For instance, today I have spent most of my day looking for YouTubers that paint miniatures for Warhammer, I think it's called, because we have this desk lamp and I was like, hey, we should really market this for people that do like little desk hobby things because the color rendering index is super high and on par with these like much more expensive brands that are specifically for that, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, I've been like on YouTube watching people paint tiny things all day. It's been interesting. That's just today. A regular day can include emailing back and forth with creators, script writing, reviewing content, big picture brainstorming. It really depends on what we need at that time. And since we are a smaller group, we can communicate really easily about what we need. So it's not like we're so independent. We just have to do the same things every single day. Like it's not that cookie cutter, which I really like.
Yes, I love that. Honestly, I feel like that's a big reason why I like creative strategy too, is it's like there's always something different. And as an ADHD girly, that really just works super well with my mind. And it's very exciting. It keeps you on your toes. And it's also so funny how you're like, yeah, today I'm literally watching YouTube videos about this, because there are sometimes niche requests where you're just like, okay, or like niche ideas. Only in this industry, like, would you end up doing this in the beginning of your day and then also this at the end of your day?
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
How has your role changed over time, and what's one lesson you learned the hard way? Have you gone from like maybe more hands-on to high level, or are you seen more as that like senior lead to your client? Let's start there, and then I'll go into the lesson you learned the hard way.
To me, they do go together because like we have a VA now, like we have somebody else that's working, like a new team member that's helping us with like, emailing the creators and getting the contracts sent out, and a lot of that like nitty-gritty stuff that as time went on, like, and a little bit of it was like scope creep, but I had been like taking on those responsibilities, and it was seriously taking up all the time that I had available, and it's important to us that we're emailing these people back that want to work with the brand, like we need to be communicating with these people. It was not allowing me to like have the time I needed to do the like higher level stuff. Right now, I'm more focused on like, okay, what are the bigger picture things we need to be doing? Like, what new angles do we need to be testing? What are those like briefs going to look like? We were talking the other day about how, we're trying to test out more of the like ugly ad, authentic kind of stuff. Like, what does a brief like that need to look like in order for the creators to be able to accomplish those goals for us? So it's definitely different, but the lesson learned is that you got to communicate what you're able to do in your day or just overall, and make sure that if you can't get it all done, you tell your client, because he was very happy to bring somebody else on board once I expressed like, hey, like here's the issues that we're having right now, like I'm having time-wise. He had no idea that I was getting as many emails as I was until I let him know. They're overseas, so they were all on vacation and I was just working alone and nobody was emailing me, which is really kind of nice because I wasn't getting anything forwarded to me. And I was like, wow, I got a lot done this week. Like, look at all the briefs I wrote. I did like some iteration documents for them. I'm like, hey, I want to like switch up these. And I sent everything over to him and he's like, oh, wow, these are great. I was like, cool. If you want me to be able to do more of this, I need to be getting less emails. So now we have somebody taking over the emails for us. And so it has freed up a ton of my time to do the higher level stuff.
That's amazing. And I know that you had brought this up in an earlier session about, hey, I'm capping out of my hours, but I want to be able to take on more clients. What do I do? And honestly, for me, delegation has been the hardest thing for me to do. And I'll be the first to admit that I held on for too long. Like, I've been doing this now for over 10 years and I got my first VA in Q1. I have refused to let go of every step of the process. And do you know what happens? Things fall through the cracks. And it's actually stunted my growth, which is like a crazy thing to admit because I also am proud of where I've gotten, but it is truly stunted my growth because I've refused to let go. So when you ask that question, I loved it because it's like, maybe to you feel like you waited too long, but in my eyes, I'm like, she did that so quickly in her career. And like, it made me so happy to know that you were able to like speak up to your client. Not only that, but they were receptive and supportive. Outsource, outsource, outsource. Then you're able to do the higher level things that are really like the needle movers. And like, I've had this conversation with other students like Bree, when you're in this position, you're there because you are able to generate revenue for your clients. And if you are doing tasks that are not moving the needle when it comes to generating revenue, you need to delegate that task. And so like, when I had asked you, I was like, well, think of two things. It's like, one, what are the tasks that you're doing that are not generating revenue directly? And two, what are tasks that you absolutely hate doing? Because also we're in a creative field and I feel like it's so important to keep in mind. Sure, like there are going to be things that we work on that we don't necessarily want to do all the time, but there are also other tasks out there that are not fully reliant on you as an individual that you could truly outsource to enable you to make a deeper impact for your clients while also conserving your mental capacity as a creative, which I feel like is super important.
Because you're just one person. You can't do everything. Like, if you were hired on to do these certain like higher level creative tasks and you're now stuck in your emails all day, they're not paying you to be doing what you should be doing. To be nice, you are wasting your own money because I'm emailing like 2 hours of the day you're paying me. Like, they were like, oh, okay, let's switch it up a little bit. So
that's so true. When you word it, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Because when you do phrase it that way, all of a sudden, it's like, no, I'm looking out for you because I cost more than what a VA would cost to respond to these emails. I had this exact conversation with one of my new clients and I had told them they were really excited because they had initially, when they started the business, they hired a lot of really young and inexperienced talent because they were very affordable. And I had to explain to them, I was like, honestly, this reminds me a lot of when brands hire overseas video editors. They're like, oh, they're so cheap. This is great. Well, guess what? The person that costs $100 an hour, $125 per hour, $150 per hour is the one that has to handhold someone overseas that's less than $10 an hour, but I had to hold their hand and it cost the company 3 hours of my time. All of a sudden, that was like a $500+ project. When really, if you hired someone that could do the work quicker and more efficiently, it would save them money. And yeah, same goes for like things like emails. It's like, well, do you really want me responding to these emails? Because this is how much it's going to cost you as compared to a VA, regardless of where they are in the world. If they're capable of doing that job and don't need handholding, that's going to be better for the company. So yes, I 1000% agree. I feel like there's a lot of psychology that just goes into communication with clients. And it's funny because it's like that same psychology we would normally leverage for like how we phrase things in marketing for like to be able to create a sale for, prospecting customer is almost the same way, different, but same, that you want to approach your clients. Because it's like, as long as you're having it said in a way that it's like, this has nothing to do with my personal gain, but yours, all of a sudden they're just like, damn, okay, say less, let's do it.
Make it about them.
Exactly. So as far as clients and workflow go, how many clients do you work with at once? And how do you structure your offers, your packages? What does this look like when you're working with your clients?
I would honestly like to co-answer this with you because like I said before, I have had my client, my unicorn client, for a couple of years now. He's got 3 brands, but he is the client. Like, it's just him. And I basically, when I pitched him on working together, I didn't have a certain amount of time, like a small window of time available. I wasn't like stacking him on top of other clients. Like, it was really like, hey, I can dedicate like all of my time to you, meaning about 25 hours a week because I have 2 young kids. I didn't have like a big package deal or like some really fancy offer that I gave to him, frankly. Like, when we emailed back and forth, he had let me know like what his concerns were about, like, when he'd worked with agencies in the past, like some of the issues that he'd had. I let him know that it would literally be, it'll be just you. It's not, I don't have any other clients. Like, you will be my number one priority. It was really just like, I listed like, here are all of the things that I can do for you to help. And he said yes. So as far as like specific offers and packages go, I know there's a million different ways that you can organize those if you are working with limited time. As of right now, I probably have no more than 10 hours available if I were to take on another client, which can be a little bit challenging. Like, I've done a few interviews with like other brands, other agencies. They were looking to hire on a strategist and they all basically needed somebody full time. If you are going to do like smaller chunks of time, like smaller contract work, I think it really depends on like how much value you can push into that smaller frame of time. And another thing that I actually am messaging somebody about, like getting on a call to kind of like pick her brain about it, is consulting. I don't have the time necessarily to take on another full-time client, but here's a brand that needs help with some really specific things. Like, let's get some decks together to go over like what you need from your creators. Like, what are your do's and don'ts, your requirements? Let's get a really clear like list of SOPs of what people on your team need to do when they're working with creators. It's not really about like, how many hours can I work for you long term and try to like, again, fit that in when I'm just one person, but I can consult. Here's what you guys need to change internally if you want to make these improvements, and then you walk away. I would like to know your thoughts on that and also how you structure offers and packages, because I know you have way more experience with that than me.
I love that you took a UGC client, pitched them on Creative Strategy. I also love when a client basically has like a product studio, which it sounds like this client does, just like this like serial entrepreneur, has their hands in a lot of pots, and it's very convenient because it's almost like mini agency, except it's just the owner who has these products, and then it's just you who can prioritize him. So for me, when it comes to my Creative Strategy clients, for the most part, since I went full time as like a contractor and left my full-time job as like a creative director, I have pretty much been offering 10 to 20 hours a week for my new clients. So I've been considering that as like a fractional role. So for me, normally what I've been doing, or at least when I first left my full-time job, I would say, hey, I'm available 10 to 20 hours a week. My hourly rate is $150, but when you commit to me at 10 hours a week minimum, it's discounted to $125. And that worked really well for me from 2023 till about the end of 2024. And that was around the time that I started to kind of get frustrated with clients. And that's when I kind of realized it's time to raise your rates, which is crazy to say out loud because I know like $125 per hour is amazing. But I realized, I was like, if I'm feeling like this is a chore, it's because I'm no longer getting paid what my value is. And so I actually came to a crossroads where I was really nervous to raise my rates because, like, yes, I've done one-off projects where I've made upwards of $200+ per hour on like, a project where like maybe it was like, a monthly flat rate, which I try to avoid unless if like literally the budget is like undeniably amazing and I can make it work. But I basically came to that crossroads. And so I started to get nervous when I was like pitching new clients, but I started saying, hey, my hourly rate is $175, but when you commit to 10 hours a week, it's discounted to $150. And so I now have 2 clients that are paying me that rate. One's 20 hours a week and one's 10 hours a week. And so that's been absolutely incredible. When it comes to basically like this journey from 2023 to present day, I've always had like a variety of clients between like 2 to 3. There have been times where like maybe one churns and then it's like, okay, well, I have one client right now. I can focus now more energy on UGC Pro. So for me, I kind of see it as an opportunity to then be like, oh, let me just like double down on UGC Pro resources or whatever it is. I am, however, also wanting to do more consulting because it's very nice to just be like, okay, let me just come in. Let me just tell you what you need. At that point, honestly, I will consider charging like $200 per hour. You don't need me forever, but you do need me right now. So let me just set you up for success, give you my prescriptive next steps, and then I can help you source these people. I can help you build these systems. And it's a great option for someone who maybe doesn't have all that much time, because if you're working full time, you're working for 40 hours a week. But if you're consulting for 10 hours a week, that can make a really big financial impact for yourself when you're able to charge more. So I've been doing mostly fractional creative strategy. And then on occasion, like I've had conversations about doing that kind of less fractional and more so consulting work.
Yeah. Consulting is where it's at. It's awesome.
Yeah, it is. So do you ever decline clients? What are the red flags? And how do you handle mixed feedback versus your own creative instincts? So let's start with, have you ever declined clients? And what were those red flags?
For creative strategy, I really haven't had to decline a client. I just have this one client who's been awesome since day one. As far as red flags go, though, like you have to trust your gut when you're interviewing with somebody. And we've all seen it. We've all talked about it. Like this industry is just like, they just will churn people through if they don't feel that things are working after a week, a day, it's ridiculous the way that like our role is just like, oh, on to the next one, and it's just horrible, honestly. So, red flags, I would say, like, if you get any like bad vibes, ecom bro vibes, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. You got to go with your gut, like especially like I would say, do not ever accept a role that's not going to pay you hourly, because the things that they're going to ask you to do, the amount of time it's going to take you to do those things, like you are totally at your client's mercy to get X, Y, and Z accomplished. And they may not even be trying to waste your time, but if they oh, I changed my mind, I need you to rework the script. Well, if that client is not paying you hourly, you are now working another 1 to 2 hours to rework a script for free. Like you're giving away your time. So never ever take project-based jobs. What red flags do you have, Kelly? What do you got?
For me, definitely ecom bro vibes. And it's very obvious, right? Ecom bros are their own subset of men. It goes without saying. They're just the ones that truly look at creatives as hired help, that do not value creatives, that also don't even understand creative when it comes to what creates a winning ad, yet they are still the loudest ones in the room. So I refuse to work with someone like that. I've said this and I stand by it. They're single-handedly ruining this industry. And it's something that the more vocal we are about just wrongdoings, the better off we'll be, in my opinion. Even though obviously it goes back to, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, because you still want to retain professionalism. And like, it doesn't mean that you have to go to LinkedIn and out someone, but it is important for accountability. But I also recognize it depends on where you're at in your career, because like I could shout anything from the rooftops and I'll still get hired. So I also want to like point that out. But yeah, ecom bros, definitely red flag. Anyone that is not accepting my hourly rate or questioning my hourly rate, I just don't work with. And that also comes with obviously having a level of privilege, because there was a time where I couldn't do that, and where I had to settle and work with someone where someone would say, well, why did you stay with them if they were so bad? And it's like, well, I lived in LA. I came from no money and I had to pay my rent. I was living off of credit card debt, and that was just how I could survive. But now I have that luxury to be able to pick and choose. And unless if you are someone that is really just in dire need of experience, I truly believe you should not be accepting an hourly rate. And a flat rate. And if there was ever a time where you're like, but I work too quickly, I'm not going to make as much money. It's time to raise your rates, maybe even double them. Also, keep in mind, you can do minimums. So if I have a project and I finish in under an hour, it's rounded up. So it's still my hourly rate. I also have minimums in the sense of, if it's under 10 hours a week, it's going to be 175. But if it's over 10 hours a week, it's going to be 150. So I say keep that in mind just because it is, so much easier to be taken advantage of. Those are probably the biggest red flags. Outside of that, just generally, and it's, aside from e-com bros, sometimes there are founders out there that really don't want to let go of the reins. And I get it. It's their baby. They've poured everything into it. It's their livelihood. But if you're hiring professionals to do a job and you're not letting them actually execute the way that they need to be doing, it's like, okay, well, now I feel like my hands are tied behind my back because I can't actually do what I want to do.
And I'll be honest, that exact scenario, I am still fighting a little bit with my client because they are the founder. When you're working with an agency or a bigger brand where the people you're working with have worked with other brands and they're all of their pooled experience is now involved here. I feel like there's so much more understanding and so much more flexibility with how the whole creative process needs to work, how the ad testing should work, what kind of creatives do we want to test, all of that. But, and I'm working just with a founder, basically. We have he's got a small team of editors, where he is and stuff. This, again, you're exactly right. What you said, this is his baby. He's the one plugging the ads in and running them. So it's we don't have a paid media manager that I can talk to about this kind of thing. It's all him. So I do have to fight a little bit on what kind of creative testing we should do. What, the kind of things that again, we talked about this the other day, maybe we don't need to talk about every single feature in the ad, it's but again, he is my client. So we're now going into the next question a little bit of how do you handle mixed feedback versus your own creative instincts. Fight my instincts a little bit sometimes because I can recommend and suggest things until I'm blue in the face, but he's my client. It's his money, it's his brand. Inevitably, if he doesn't want to try the things that I'm suggesting, okay, he's the one plugging the ads into the ad account. I am just the one helping make new ads happen and all that stuff. So it's a challenge. But it's one of those things where, again, this is his brand. If he wants to do it this way, even though I'm telling him maybe we should try something else, okay, we're going to do it his way. And it's not that I have not won certain arguments and not their arguments is not the right word, helped him kind of change how he sees it a little bit. Cause I definitely have, we've made some really big strides from when I started. But it's still just every day, just a little bit, we got to try to expand what we're doing and try new things. I did think of some other red flags though, and these obviously will be different for everyone. But for me personally, taking on a new creative strategy client, working with a new brand, a new agency, regardless, how they are treating their creators is a very big deal to me. What kind of AI shortcuts they're taking is a very big deal to me because especially if I'm going to be personally associated, professionally associated with this brand or this agency, ethically, I've got a baseline, we're not going to underpay people. We're not going to, take your face and put it on somebody else's body. There are certain things that I am so not okay with that a lot of brands and agencies want to do to cut corners because it's all about money for them. And I really only want to work with brands or agencies, individuals who value not just me and my work, but every single person in this creative process that helps make these ads come to life. You need to value all of these people for me to be okay with working with you.
Yes. That's so true. And it's, it goes back to how you had said, because I had said one of my red flags is when a founder or, brand hires me and I'm not able to do what I was hired for. But it's finding that balance, right? Because the person you're working for is not an e-com bro. He's just a brand owner that is, like we said, it's his baby. But then when you look at the other side of the spectrum, it's okay, there are truly e-com bro vibe people out there who are just treating creators like hired help. And yeah, it's all about how they're approaching AI. Are they the ones, posting that rage bait on Twitter saying they can't wait to replace creators with AI, whatnot, all of those things. So yes, 1000% agree. Going back to how you handle mixed feedback versus your own creative instincts, I feel like this also just goes back to the rule of thumb. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And it's learning to bid with the founder, especially. Not to say that there won't be times where you're working with a team and maybe there's someone on the team that's not even a founder and they're challenging to work with, because that totally exists as well if you're working with a bigger, more established brand or agency. But when it comes to the founder specifically, and also I guess generally, one thing I've really figured out that works well, especially coming from an agency background where, unfortunately, I feel like the agency model is so flawed because you have no choice when you're at an agency than to just say yes. Because it's like, if they churn, it directly impacts agency revenue, and you don't have an opportunity to really have that candid conversation that maybe you get to have with the founder one-on-one. And it's not to say that you get your way every time, but I just feel like in situations where I've been at agencies, they're like, well, no, this brand is really frustrated with us, or, they threaten to leave. So whatever they ask for, just do it. And it's kind of like, all right, but damn, like this isn't going to do well. Whereas, if there's an idea said and you're just like, okay, like for example, my new client, they're like, well, every video has to have these like 12 value props. It's like, oh my God, it's a 20-second video. How am I supposed to fit these value props in this video while also humanizing myself in this connection with a viewer? And so ways that I've gone about this is I'll say, okay, yeah, we can test this, but I also want to test iterations where we're testing maybe grouping value props. So maybe like these 3 value props, they work really well together. These three. So we can test, the one with the 12 value props or whatever, and then test, 4 other videos that feature 3 value props a piece. And then depending on performance, then we could test, the value prop mashup versus individual value propositions. So yeah, normally I like to opt for, okay, we can do it that way, but I'd also like to test this version as well. That way then also, because the biggest concern is it's like, okay, well, if I keep just doing what you're telling me to do and performance isn't picking up, then we're in trouble, because if I'm not making you money, I'm not going to last that long, because that's what I'm here for. And like, you're going to be dissatisfied with performance.
You never say no. You just say yes, and little redirection. And same like with the agency thing. It's like, okay, well, this brand is threatening to walk because things aren't working, so you better do what they say. Doing what they say is probably why things aren't working. Try something else. If things aren't working, try something else, which is exactly the conversation I'm having with my client right now, because things aren't working. So we have to try something else.
There you go. So we're going to move on to skills and tools. Which skills, strategy, analytics, storytelling, etc., are most critical to succeed as a creative strategist? And how do you avoid that burnout as a creative? So like, think about like the skills when you're starting out in creative strategy. Like, what do you like really need to refine to be successful? And then also like, how do you make sure that you're not going to experience burnout?
I love this question so much because burnout is the worst, you guys, and we should avoid it at all costs. I feel like in this industry especially, and obviously I would never name any names, but I see people on Instagram and they're just chugging along and they're posting every day and they're doing no days off. I worked, 15 hours today, like all this stuff. Suddenly you're in the hospital because you've had a panic attack. It's like, well, no wonder you obviously you documented you're overworking yourself. We all saw you overworking yourself. And now you're telling us not to get burnt out because you got burnt out. It's like, we need to give ourselves breaks. So rule number 1 is take weekends off, you guys. Step away from your computer. Put your phone on do not disturb at the end of the night. My client is internationally based, meaning when I am asleep, he is awake. It's literally a 12-hour difference, okay? He's in Beijing. So I get up early in the morning. We're on Slack, messaging each other back and forth. I'm responding to everything he said during the night so that he can see that I'm responding. Maybe there's an hour or 2 of overlap where we're both awake and we can talk in real time, or we have a meeting or something. But when I'm winding down and going to bed, my phone starts ba-ding, 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 because he's awake. He's replying to things. And I do not work past 9 p.m. My husband works until 9 p.m. He works remotely. 9 p.m., okay, I'm done for the night. I'll get everything else done in the morning. And I put my phone on do not disturb, because burnout is I do not want to go there. I refuse. Skill-wise, I think it's going to be honestly different for everyone based on what your background is, what your skills are that you feel are your strongest going into it. Like for someone like me who came from the UGC side, I felt really confident in my creative abilities, my script writing abilities. I knew what I needed to hear from brands as a creator, so I therefore knew how to talk to creators about what we were looking for, negotiating rates, like all of that communication stuff, like that was very natural to me. I could dive right into it, no problem. The first time I opened the meta ads library, I about had a heart attack because it's not pretty, you guys. It's just like a spread, it's a little scary. So for me, like more the analytics stuff, that was what I needed to work on more again. And since I hadn't had a client before and I wasn't jumping into a role where they were like giving me, here are all the things we need you to do, like I really had to learn how to organize the process and make sure that like everything that I was getting done during the day or whatever throughout the week was like actually what needed to be happening. So keeping myself organized was definitely on there. But again, it's different for everyone depending on your background and the skills that you feel like are your strongest.
Ooh, such good points. And I feel like that's also why I am normally just encouraging the fact that it's like if you're already really good at UGC, like you might as well start flexing that creative strategy muscle, because even though you're not doing the entire role of what a creative strategist is, you're doing a lot of the parts, which means like you're already setting yourself up for success to open up this new avenue of income. That said, one thing to also keep in mind is I feel like, and you talked about organization, goes hand in hand with what I'm about to say, which is sometimes there's gray areas where like creative strategy can also mean like project management, admin work, which does require like organization, communication. And it's like also when you come to a certain point, it's which project management and admin work do I need to be doing that is the needle mover that I personally have to do in order to make an impact. And then it goes back to what are the things I can now delegate to make sure that I'm opening up my bandwidth to focus on brand market analysis, the competitor analysis, looking at top performing ads, concept ideation, scripting, briefing, going through rounds of revisions with creators. I mean, literally the post-production revision process is, every part holds its weight, but it's incredible what rounds of revisions can do. Like, for example, I just started with this new client and I was, helping close out briefs that were pre-existing before my time. Funny enough, the ads that I went through that required, a little bit more intensive rounds of revisions, those ads are now winning and are now top performers. And it's because of the creative strategy that was applied in the post-production process. And so it just goes to show that like, someone like Brie, she's a video editor. So like that comes very natural for her, I'm sure. Whereas if someone has never edited before, they might struggle with that. And I feel like for me as a strategist, as a creative director, I have always had that as a strong suit because I was a direct response video editor by trade and fell into the industry literally on accident because of my passion for video editing. So like you said, ultimately, it really does depend on your background.
And I would say depending on like what kind of job environment you end up in, whether it's with an agency, a smaller group like me, you end up doing some fractional thing. Like if someone has gone through the interview process with you, they liked you, trusted you enough to hire you on for something, if there is a certain part of your job that you're supposed to be doing that you feel like a little iffy, a little like imposter syndrome-ish with, I do not think there's any issue with asking like, hey, I want to go a little bit more in depth about what you need from me in this specific category just to make sure I'm delivering exactly what you need. Can you like share some real specific SOPs with this? What were some issues you had with the person that was doing this previously so that you can like really make sure you're doing exactly what they need and not just guessing?
Ooh, yes. I love that you brought that up because I personally experienced this, especially early on in my career when there weren't resources like communities, like video courses. YouTube University wasn't even a thing for direct response marketing because this is a very niche skill set and industry. And so one thing that I struggled with was I felt like I couldn't ask questions and that I couldn't admit that I didn't know something. And truthfully, that stunted my growth, which is why I really do recommend and encourage if something's brought up and you don't know it, you're not expected to know everything. Also in marketing, there are so many acronyms that literally specific agencies or companies will use. They also will sometimes use concept and format and angle in different ways than your other client would. So it's okay to say, hey, when you refer to concept, what are you talking about? Because I want to make sure that like, is it that one concept? Is it including iterations? When you talk about angle, like, are you referring to this? When you talk about format, you're kind of making it sound like you're referring to angle. Like, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. I don't care what you call it. I just want to make sure that I understand what needs to be done. So like communication, asking questions, and also like shameless plug, but like that's literally why we created this community, is because it's like you don't even have to go to the client if you don't want to. Like you can come directly to the community and ask your questions and get them answered in real time, which is amazing because I wish I had this when I first started. Like I wish I had it. I truly wish I did. I would have gotten to this point so much faster because my learning curve was insane because I had no one to help me. It was truly just trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. So ultimately, one thing I could have done was ask more questions and like admit to the fact that I don't know everything. And neither does the person that I'm asking. And if they make you feel bad for asking questions, that's just a poor reflection of leadership.
Put that in that red flag category. That's just not good. I mean, you want your people asking questions, not just assuming that they know what they're supposed to be doing. I mean, I would 1,000% always have someone ask me a question rather than just have them go off and try to figure it out.
Yes. Also, before we move forward, when you were talking about burnout, this is so true. Glorifying the hustle is just like so not the right approach because there will be a time where something happens, where something breaks, whether that's your literal health, which I have ended up in the emergency room multiple times because I was so stressed out that I had the most painful periods of my life, that I was blacking out, puking from the pain. And literally like Shane was like carrying me into the emergency room to get literal morphine because of how high my stress levels were at one point, which is why I also make it a point to, it's either for me, I'm a little bit more flexible with my time off because of my week. And I think that's just because like we don't have kids. So it's like weekends, if I am working, it's on my own terms. And during the workday, like I literally have all these appointments. I'm always getting my weekly facial. I'm like treating myself to all these things. I'm getting massages. I'm like doing all these like midday trips. Like I'm just enjoying myself. And like I literally remind myself if I'm like not having fun 85% of the time, something is wrong. And I say 85% of the time because I mean, regardless of the role you have in any industry, it's not going to be rainbows and butterflies every single time. But that said, like, it's so important to set that time. And like for me, problematic take, I have do not disturb on my phone permanently. So if I'm not at my desk, I have to manually check to even see. And that's the boundary I have personally set, and I love it.
It's good. Boundaries are so good. And, with the setting your time and your boundaries and stuff with work, it's like if you have kids, the hustle culture doesn't work with kids. You cannot build a business all day long and post on your socials and build your personal brand and do and reach out to brands and do all of this stuff and work for 14 hours. I don't want my kids to see me like this. I hate it. If I am with them, I want to be with them. We're outside. I literally was touching grass before I came in to do this call. I went outside and I was like, I'm going to go ground myself. And I put my feet in the grass in my front yard. So it's like, you got to get away from your screens and stuff and go be a person. Because you know what? Also, sometimes on the weekends when I'm not thinking about work is when I have really good ideas about things for work because my brain finally has a chance to relax.
That's so true. It's like when I'm on like my bike at Cycle Bar, I'm like thinking about all these things, or like when I'm in like the sauna. Moving on, what tools or software are you using on a daily basis?
Let's make this one quick because I feel like this is like everybody kind of uses the same stuff like Slack, emails, Notion. We don't use Motion. Actually, we use MagicBrief. I love Motion. I would love for us to use Motion. Big fan of Motion. I use Foreplay. Yeah, if you guys don't use Foreplay, that's probably my favorite. Oh, and obviously ChatGPT, my bestie.
Honestly, checked all of them off the list. I know you can use Atria the same way you could use MagicBrief. I love Foreplay. I had the opportunity to connect with Zach, the founder of Foreplay, last year before Creator Confidential. And it was just really cool to learn his story. He's completely bootstrapped that business. And like has never accepted, at least at the time, any investor money. So I thought that was really cool because, I mean, it's just an incredible tool. It's very industry standard, similar to Motion. You pretty much touched on all the tools. I mean, for project management, there are times where like clients will use Wrike or Asana, or, you know, for communication, sometimes, God, Microsoft Teams. I really hope I never have a client that uses that ever again. Basecamp, you know, Mondays also for project management. So there's a bunch of different ones. So like if you ever have a client and they're like, well, have you ever used this? Just be like, I've never personally used this project management tool or communication tool. However, I have used this one. And then it's like, okay, cool. Like you're familiar. It's all really easy to like, the learning curve is very short.
And they're all, I mean, they all do very similar things. Like we're a smaller team. And since I did not come from a corporate girly background, like I hadn't used any of that stuff before. And so when we're like building things out and it's like, okay, I want to make sure we can track our projects. Like I just put a project tracker together in Notion and it's working really fine for like the 4 people that have to use it. So there you go.
That's awesome. We're going to go over growth and results and challenges and wins really quickly. I chose 2 questions from this section, and then the others we kind of touched on, but I feel like we could bring up in our next session as like a follow-up. So the first question is, Kelly mentioned that you doubled your business. Can you give context on this, however you feel comfortable sharing?
I don't talk about my income usually on my socials because frankly, at this point, I don't post much on my socials. And my aunts think it's weird when I post about how much money I make, which is fine. Well, my uncle was a doctor, so he made tons of money, so it really shouldn't bother him, but whatever. Like I had been working consistently as a freelance UGC creator for like a year and a half-ish, actually probably just about a year before I took on my client. And so I had made like $50,000 that first year doing UGC, like very part-time with the kids, which I was like super excited about. But I had this little voice in my head that said I really wanted to make 6 figures, wrote it down on a bunch of pieces of paper, on my vision board. I really wanted to make 6 figures. I don't even know why, because, you know, it's just a really specific number, but I really wanted to make 6 figures. So I took on my new client, and after that year with him, like I charge $100 an hour and I work 25 to 30 hours a week. So that plus I still had some UGC clients on the side. I wasn't pitching very much. Like I wasn't posting a lot. So I wasn't getting tons of inbounds, but I did have a pretty decent list of previous clients, like repeat clients that I had worked with, and I would still work with them occasionally for certain projects. I made like $140,000 that next year. It was crazy. My tax guy was just like blown away. Shout out to Mark. He's the best.
That's crazy. I love hearing that. And you're still doing creative strategy in a part-time capacity.
Yeah. The amount of time and effort that I had to put in doing just UGC, I probably work less now than I did when I was just doing that. Because there's so much more, like, you know, right now it's like if I'm working, like my timer is running, like my clock is running, I'm logging my hours. When you're doing UGC, a lot of that behind the scenes work that you have to do to get clients, that you have to do to get jobs, that's unpaid stuff. That's just your own personal marketing, all the, you know, negotiating back and forth before you even get the job, you know, like all that stuff is unpaid. So I was probably putting in way more time doing that than I am now.
You made so many good points. So 2 specifically, this is an affirmation for hourly rate. When you're charging hourly, it gets me excited to do more work. So when a client wants me to do something, I'm not annoyed. I'm not rolling my eyes. I'm not upset about it. I'm like, hell yeah, you want me to work more. Like for me, I sometimes occasionally get flown out to meet the team in person. So like I flew to Southern California, all expense paid trip. And I was like stoked to go into the office because I was like, well, I do work part-time, but I'm showing up for an 8-hour workday. And I'm excited for it. Funny enough, we ended up getting into such a good brainstorming conversation that we actually did. I got into the office around 10:30. And I want to emphasize that like I don't want to like glorify this happening regularly, but it just worked out this way. So 10:30 till 2:30 is when I got to connect with the team. I then connected with the founders at 4 o'clock with 2 other fractional executives. And we ended up having a brainstorming conversation that went from 4 to 9 p.m. And it was the best time ever. We ordered takeout. We were all vibing. Obviously, it depends on chemistry. Do you feel comfortable? Like, it's just really cool to like be in that room and like have founders that are receptive of your ideas and are like, okay, cool. Let's pull it up on the screen. So if we did this and we did this, like, how could we enhance AOV? It was so much fun. And like, I ended the day and I was like, holy cow, that was a $1,600 workday. And I didn't leave pissed off. I left being like, oh my God, that was amazing. I can't wait for tomorrow. I'm going to extend my stay. I'm going to come into office up until Thursday. Like, I can't wait to go back in because I enjoy it. Now, granted, that's not sustainable, which is why I work remote, but I occasionally do fly out to clients that are down for that because at least what I'm doing with my clients, like it's been really great performance-wise, connecting with the team, etc. But yeah, it just goes back to like hourly rate is the best just because the more work you get, the more excited you are. And then the UGC being more work, I will die on this hill. Like, yes, for me personally in 2022, I made a little over $100,000 working 10 to 15 hours a week doing UGC. The only reason why I was able to do that is because of the connections and relationships and retainers I had already built over the years. For the average UGC creator, you can make six figures, but it's not going to be at 10 to 15 hours a week. There might be a unicorn. For the most part, that's not going to happen. And the reason why I love creative strategy is because you're going to most likely be able to close a retainer doing creative strategy rather than UGC. Because like creative strategy, it just works out that way. Like they want someone on a reoccurring basis, whereas UGC, it can very much be one and done quite often.
And I would say also, like for me personally, having creative strategy be my main bread and butter, if I do get a UGC opportunity, somebody pops in my mailbox, regular client, I am not stressed out about, oh my God, how much do I need to charge to try to like pay my bills and do all of this stuff. Like I'm able to charge, a reasonable amount of money, but a very fair rate because, and like this, again, this is something we've talked about before. I'm going to give them perpetual ownership, like perpetual usage. I'm going to give them raw footage. I'm going to give them extra hooks. I maybe would do like a concept a week, like if I'm going to work with a client or something. So I bundle everything in for them. I don't have to worry about charging like buckets and buckets of money for that, hoping that, that works because I don't necessarily need it, because I have a good client. Like if they don't want to take that, rate or whatever, then that's fine. But typically if I'm able to like bundle everything in, they're so excited that they got all of these like freebies on top of it that they always come back for more stuff. And it's still like a fair amount, for me. It's not like I'm like underpaying myself. It's just that there's like all of these extras that they get on top of it.
To justify the cost and be more selective about those opportunities because you're not reliant on that income. Absolutely. It makes UGC so much more fun. Like I just closed a client. It's like perpetual ownership, raw footage. I closed them at $1,500 and it's like, I don't know, like less than 20 B-roll shots. There was like 3 script reads. And it's like, in my eyes, I'm like, that's personally feels really easy for me and like not a big deal. And like $1,500, like I was really happy with that. Cause like technically the 3 script reads really are like 2 scripts because they're so short. And then it's like, I literally just have to sit down and film it. All this is going to take me like 2 hours. So what? I got paid $750 an hour. And I got to do that because I negotiated with this person and wasn't afraid of losing this opportunity because, I'm making this money through creative strategy.
And you can also give a real easy no to those low paying, it's a little ick, it's a little weird. The one like when you're just doing UGC, you're like, man, my inbox has been really slow. Should I take this $200 gig? Like, I don't know when the next thing's going to come. Like, you don't have to ask yourself those questions anymore. You can just decline if you don't want to do it.
And what's funny is I actually had the same conversation or like train of thought earlier this week because I'm talking to a prospective client for creative strategy. And I had quoted them. I was like, hey, like I'm recommending we start out doing 10 hours a week just so we can like give it a go for a good test. And they responded and they're like, well, like how much for a flat rate? And I like responded and I was like, hey, like I'm going to be honest, I prioritize my clients that are paying my hourly rate. So that's just not going to work. And I don't care what they say back. Like if they say no, like I, again, have that luxury and privilege to not be worried about it because I already have my source of income. Now, if I didn't have any clients, like obviously it would be maybe a little bit more of like a rock between a hard place. But once you get to that point, you get to be more selective for both creative strategy and UGC, which is amazing. Did you guys have anything top of mind that you wanted to ask now that we've discussed? Bree, what's up?
So I wanted to ask, now that I have more context on like your actual client and like what you do specifically for you, what your creative output was like on a monthly basis and what kind of supports and systems you have in place.
I literally went and checked like our ad account to make sure that I was going to give you like accurate stuff. Across those 3 brands right now, our like monthly spend is like $750K and it's split between the 3, obviously. I went and checked like for the last like 14 days, we had roughly like 15 to 25 ads like per brand for that 2-week period. And that includes like iterations and stuff and some statics and everything. So we don't have like tons and tons of output, like we are a smaller team. And I'm also not responsible for like every single ad that comes out. I will write the briefs. We've got like the hook iterations in there for the briefs. You send them to the creators, they send everything back. And then the editors sometimes will tweak the footage a little bit. Like they'll pull maybe some shots that somebody else got that they liked a little bit more and plug those in instead. Maybe they'll do a couple of different versions where they like rearrange a few things. Maybe they'll do like a cut down version and stuff. But like I don't have my hands in everything because again, I'm just one person and that's like a lot of ads to come out with. So I am really more in charge of like the overall, like here's the idea, here's the angle, here's the script, and then they on their side will take care of a lot of the like, okay, let's put that together now. And like, what other ways can we put that together? And then depending on if those things are working, amazing. But like we talked about the other day, sometimes those things are not working. So now we have to kind of like redo everything and rework everything. Hence why I was watching people paint miniatures all day today, trying to figure out if these are the kind of, maybe these people need lamps.
Do you write all the scripts? Or do you like have help with that?
I write most of them. We hired a VA that's also a strategist because I wanted to make sure that we had somebody that could like, I didn't want somebody like overseas that can just do emails. Like I wanted somebody that we could like bring on board to like help take over some of the workloads that we had the opportunity to like expand what we were doing, which luckily this client was really on board with. She has written a couple of scripts, and then depending on the type of creators that we're working with, we'll let them write scripts. And it also depends on the brand. So like one of the brands is like a camping outdoor gear brand. And so a lot of the creators that we work with are not like your typical UGC creators. These are like real backpacking, like camping, people that live in their van. They're just like a different breed of people. So giving them like a script, it just sounds like they're reading it. Like it doesn't work, you know? So like a lot of times we'll give, like we have these, I put together like a deck for each product. And not like, when I say each product, like we really only make ads for like our like top sellers, like the big ones. So that's probably like 2 to 3 products per brand. But I put together like a deck for each of those products so that it's like, here are all of the features. Here are the general guidelines, you know, safe zones, camera settings, like all of that stuff. And then like general talking points with like some pictures for each of kind of like, here's some like good, really good examples of shots that we've gotten that we love to see. You know, we want to see like the sleeping pad from the side so you can see how thick it is, like that kind of stuff. And so we'll send those to people because that way I don't have to write a script for everybody. It sounds more authentic coming from them anyway, but they still are able to see like kind of all the details that we need. So they're not just like flying blind. Yeah, so I definitely don't write every single script.
That was really helpful, mostly because my role at my agency is creative strategy, but for video specifically. And then we have like the design team, and I'm like manning the paid media video side. And so I'm producing videos, but across like 5 different clients. And so I was like, is my output normal? Is it too little? Is it too much? Like, what are other people doing? Because I feel like I don't have a lot of people that I can ask that to. I appreciate it.
You can always ask us that. And it depends on like really like how you write your briefs, like how you structure them. One brief does not have to equal one ad, you know, like, and depending on like how you're communicating with like the people that are like putting all that footage together, or how you're even communicating with the creator, you can get, you know, you add, if there's 4 hooks in there, like, alrighty, that's 4 ads now. Then you do cut down versions. Then you do like one without the audio, and you just put text, you know, like you've got all these different options when you have like just one brief without having to like write so much, you know? And if you try to like have ChatGPT help you write everything, then everything sounds the same and like a robot. Doesn't really work either.
That's so true. It really does come down to like just like how you're strategically approaching it. And like definitely like cut downs are such an easy win to be able to have those net new concepts put out without like literally stretching yourself too thin. Amazing. Serena, Betty Ann, did you guys have any follow-up questions before we end the call for today?
I just really wanted to thank you for putting this on, and Sam for your time, because it's so valuable for me to see that it's possible. I don't know. It was just so good. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. So, I mean, I'm so looking forward to listening to next week's and learning more. And it's so funny because, Sam, you said that you were listening to them on YouTube 2 years ago, and I had literally pressed send to an email to Kelly saying how much I appreciated those Saturday afternoons. Well, they were Saturday afternoons for me because they were on the Pacific time zone and I was on Eastern, and it was like midday Saturday. So, of course, I'm living life, and I was like listening and learning and participating, and I was like, could be in a golf course, you know, or it could be on the boat, or I could be at the beach, but I didn't miss them because they were so valuable. And that's what I feel when we have these kind of discussions. It's just like, I can't even believe that I'm here in a meeting with you guys. You know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy. Anyways, I'm so thankful.
Oh, I love you so much. Thank you for saying that. Those Saturdays were the best. I mean, like, and then sometimes it was like a super small group, kind of like this, because again, it was like a lot of people were like, oh, Saturday, but like I'd plop my kids in front of the TV for an hour and a half and be like, this is mommy time. Mommy has her notebook and her computer out. I have things to learn.
I love that. I love hearing that. That makes me so happy. Also, Betty Ann, thank you so much for all those praises. And I'm also looking forward to Tuesday's call. So thank you again, guys, so much for joining. I really appreciate it. And I will see you next week for our follow-up call. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the UGC Pro podcast. I hope today's episode gave you inspiration and practical steps to apply to your business. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to hit follow, leave a review, and share it with another creator or marketer. And make sure to catch our next episode. Now, I don't want to give too much away, but let's just say you will not want to miss out. Until then, remember that success is a strategy and you are your most valuable client. So treat yourself like it. And lastly, if you aren't already connected with us on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, X, look up UGC Pro and be sure to follow along. And as always, I wish you the best of luck on your UGC and creative strategy journey.